they're asking questions, and they're very, very cryptid. They don't ask them plainly, like it would be straightforward. But our hearts are asking questions. Their hearts are asking questions. The world's an option for answering. The enemy is definitely an option. Prince of Darkness and the minions of spiritual warfare. Their interpreter is somewhat fragile and susceptible to the negative. It's just bizarre. And you know how I know that? Not because of observing my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Observing mine.
Observing you, yeah.
Came out of the factory somehow with that malfunction.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoe's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Welcome, friends and allies, to the Exploring More podcast. Michael Thompson hanging out with SJ, Josh, talking about being dads.
Andy behind the
controls.
The glass.
That's right.
Awesome, Andy Poe.
Is this the last one? You
No.
think? Oh, okay. This is number 4, though.
Yes.
Okay.
There are more to come.
So yeah, I saw
We don't know how many.
the subtitle that Andy and Caleb kind of gave to this dad series episode is "There's Hope." So I'm after kind of diving into the wounding and what we've done as dads and yeah, men and whoever's listening, women, it's a tough role. Being a mom, being a dad, it's a tough role, and most of us weren't really trained well, even though we have a lot of training as boys, and if you're a woman, then as a girl, you know how your mom and dad handled your heart. But I think we started to touch on some of the hope of reconciliation, some of the hope of redemption.
Yeah, we started to turn that
direction. Some of the ways, and it's a bit of work. It's a bit. That's why I want.
It's humbling.
That's what I would open up this episode with. That hey, if you dare go here, it's some work.
Yeah.
And yet the treasure is worth the dig.
Oh man.
Yeah. And that is my encouragement. We're going to talk about Proverbs 22:6, which is train up. And Andy, I think if you put this on, that would be good. Make sure you put on the Amplified, because that's the one I'm going to go with. Train up a child in the way they should go, and in keeping with their individual gift or bent. And when he and she is old, they will not depart from it. That's Proverbs 22:6 in the Amplified. And I think, probably heard that verse many times growing up, and there's a translation on that verse, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart from it. But why I like the Amplified, it puts in that phrase, according to their particular gift or bent. That's what I believe, if there's a hope for me as a dad, it is exploring the heart of my children and with God to discover what is their gift or bent. What is it, the way that they've uniquely been created? I mean, we had, just the other morning, 15 guys on the phone talking about the glory of our lives.
Yeah.
That conversation was kicking.
It was.
Those guys were in it, on it. They had pages they wanted to turn to in King Me, and I couldn't help but think about, there's a glory to their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's entrusted to us. And in many ways, we weren't that trustworthy as fathers.
No.
Many of us.
No.
And not, some of you guys, I'm sure, were all stars, and you got this stuff down early, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Have you met one like that?
I've met men that their kids they would say that their dad. Here's the consolation prize, I feel like, when they say, my dad did the best that he could, and I kind of think, well, what does that mean? And have you earned the right to even say that? Do you know his story? But I think there's some fathers, and I think Josh is one who we'll see, because it's going to be another decade. But I think that they'll say, you know, my dad pursued me. He moved at me, toward me, and yeah, and I know he loved me. And
I could ask that question in a better way.
And it isn't because you know, some people can hang on to that question. It isn't. Some people will say, "Well, I know my dad loved me," and if you dig a little bit, their dad never told them that. And they're kind of, it's kind of an inference. It's implied.
Well, I had 3 hots and a cot. I mean,
right. He came home.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean,
but I think there's just there's that chord that I talked about last episode that we do want to. He's our dad, you know, and if he was an alcoholic, if he was a womanizer, if he ruined the family accounts, I mean, still your dad.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where some of those phrases come from that are more of the cry of a heart than they are a medal of honor. Mm-hmm. That's very different. He did the best that he could. I know my dad loved me. You know, that's it, versus, yeah, I know my dad loved me. You know, he told me. He told me. He showed me.
Or yeah, I know my dad's story, and I know he did the best he could.
Yeah.
Given the circumstances he was,
what he went through, and what happened to him exactly.
Yeah, man.
So
okay.
I think that's, you know, that's a good setup for what does it look like, the hope of going forward and training up a child in the way they should go, and that doesn't end. My dad's job with me is still on.
Sure.
I don't know if he knows that as much as I wish he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know he's still somewhat the product of my grandparents. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's a lot of pioneering for men who weren't fathered well, like my dad. You're right. You're creating maps. You're not looking at maps, you know. And even if you get a good map, you still have to execute the voyage. You still have to move. Turn right here. Turn left here. You know, until you start to learn how to navigate this thing known as your sons and daughters' hearts. Mm-hmm. But at 60, it's still in there. That part of me that's connected to him. And his words and his presence, which we'll talk about in this episode.
Yeah, it occurs to me as you're sharing about that, man. You know, there's times where, as a son, and maybe we'll talk about this in one of the episodes to come. You know, I know guys who are walking in this message, and they know more about how their dad responded to different situations throughout his life because of their orientation than their dad does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? Yeah. I know, I'm thinking of a guy right now, I can see his face. He knows his dad's story well enough to know and is oriented enough to know. So what does it mean then for that guy to pursue his dad? Because we're talking about dads pursuing kids.
Yeah.
How do kids pursue their dads? Maybe we can get into that in a different episode. But I wanted to say it so that it didn't go off into the void.
Yeah. So
somewhere.
I think we'll get into all kinds of paths on this one. So we'll be right back to explore more on the Exploring More podcast.
Every great adventure starts with preparation. A place to gather, rest, and equip ourselves for the journey ahead. In the same way, Zoe's Base Camp is here for you. An online resource library created to encourage and strengthen Zoe allies on the road to deeper connection, healing, and restoration. A base camp is a staging ground, a place to prepare for the next leg of your expedition. At Zoe, Base Camp is a resource library designed to help you and our allies gear up for the journey of the heart. It is packed with devotionals, discussion guides, and podcasts to help you deepen your relationship with God and one another. When you visit Base Camp, you'll find a growing collection of resources, each crafted to guide you and the men in your circles on your walk with God. Each series that you find below includes a devotion plan with supplemental video content from the Explore More podcast. The devotionals are designed for both personal reflection and small group discussions, helping you dig deeper into God's truth while building meaningful relationships. On the Basecamp website, you will see the various series that we have available. When you click on a series, you'll have the opportunity to download the PDF devotion plan and the discussion guide questions. This also includes an invitation to reflect in time alone with God. Share the plan with your small group and send out the podcast videos for members to watch on their own time. Then, when you gather, dive into conversations about what God is revealing to each of you. Basecamp is more than a resource library. It's a tool for building redemptive brotherhood on the road to experiencing more life, more love, and freedom with God. Start your journey today, explore Basecamp, and reach out to us at allies@zoe.org if you have any further questions.
Welcome back to the Exploring More podcast. This is so beautiful and challenging because we're talking about multifaceted things. For instance, I'm a son. I'm Jim Thompson's boy. I'm 60, and I'm a dad. And those are working and operating in some kind of tandem, in some type of relationship, particularly as it pertains to the masculine and feminine journey, which we've talked a little bit about. But I just want to, when I bring up Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way that they should go, according to their particular gift or bent. And when they're older, they'll not depart from it. That you're really talking about the glory of their lives, why they're here, what is their unique way they bear God's image.
Yeah.
That is the job of helping them see and become. And you should see it before they do. If you're a dad that's paying attention, there's implications to this passage.
Yeah.
That you're actually seeing it.
Yep.
And there's going to be a lot of trial and error. They're going to try things. You don't know if they're a musician or if they're a big league pitcher or they're going to be an engineer or an accountant. You don't know what they're going to become, but you can start to discover what's in them.
Yes.
How they see and navigate and move in the world. Are they introverted or are they extroverted? Right? It's not your job if they're extroverted to make them introverted or vice versa. It's to or make them even worse like you. It's your job to discover, with the help of God, who are they in the kingdom, and those little strings and strains of DNA are in there. And can you tap into that? Can you foster that?
Yeah. So, Josh, what is the story of you doing that for one of your kids? Just what Michael just described.
Yeah.
Because you're in the thick of it.
Sure.
Like we can go back and help our kids, but our kids are older.
Yeah.
So 13, 12, and 11,
Yeah.
you're right there.
Yeah. So I was going to say it may be a little easier for me to remember toddler years because mine was closer and, not quite as far as long as you guys. So it's easier for me to think back to those moments and when those personalities begin to come out for the first couple times, right? And you get to see what makes them come alive and the hobbies and the interests they gravitate towards. And I love that time. Like I would go back to that time, that era in a minute.
Yeah, man.
And down to listening to my daughter, remembering, the inflection of the way she used to say daddy. It was D-A-E, daddy. Just melt your heart, man. And
Speaking Southern.
Oh yeah, man.
As
And
few syllables as possible.
yeah, man, and just
Or as
light
many
up
as you
a
can
room.
make up.
How better you
Light up
make,
a
that's
room,
right.
not scared to talk to anybody, but she was taking dance early on, and you just see this natural gifting that she has to entertain and to perform, and the art of it and the creativity of it. But something happened where this stage fright overtook her to the point where she quit dance. And then when she wanted to play softball, I took her to the first tryout, and she wouldn't even get out of the car.
This
Just
is how long ago?
So this was, she was 9. So
Okay.
this was a couple
So
years ago.
3-4 years ago.
Yeah, so went from being a blossom, sunflower, to hiding, not wanting, scared, stage fright, crippling, like would not do anything. And it was hard to watch that, because where did that come from, right? What happened? And could never really get answers. Brooke and I couldn't look back and think of a dance recital that went wrong or an just something that maybe when she became aware of what other people, her cognizant of how other people might perceive her. I don't know. Still don't know. But we just watched it happen. It was really hard to watch. And so it was several years of trying to reinforce her identity. Nothing to hide, proven fear. Mm-hmm. Out of all my kids, it's related most to my daughter. Like, she's gravitated towards that mantra of knowing who she is, where she is, and the good that God's up to in her life, grabbing hold of that. So I say all of that to say I don't have this grand story. It was just kind of constant, every day, months and years of trying to reinforce that. But as much as I wanted that for her, it didn't click. The light bulb didn't go off until she grabbed hold of it herself.
Right.
And just was a lead in her school play in front of all her peers and crushed it. But it's crazy. In 13 years of life, just 13, the ebbs and flows that she's gone through with her own life, with her own identity, and her acceptance, right, of all that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think to reclaim that and to seize that moment, it was just kind of consistent reinforcement. Mm-hmm. But allowing her the space to feel what she feels.
Yeah.
Right?
And man,
and try to get in there and figure out why.
There's so much.
It's so good, man, that
yeah.
you let it, you didn't make that happen.
Yeah, right.
Right. So waiting for it to reveal itself. I loved you used the word sunflower blossom.
Yeah.
And the sun went away for a little while. Yeah. So the petals she kind of
withered.
retracted a little
right,
bit,
right.
But you waited for the sun to come out. You didn't force that to happen.
Yeah.
Right. That's great.
Well, I would just say I tried.
Yeah,
right? You're going to this tryout.
That's what I was about to say.
Well, there was a little bit, but when I realized I couldn't force it, you can't force it.
Yeah, there's trial and error in that, and
which then informs how you handle the hearts of your other children. Right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they need a nudge, and it's like, Dad, quit pressuring me. Yeah. Okay, but it doesn't.
It's constant assessment.
Yes,
right,
it's ongoing.
Yeah, right. And where's the line between validation and affirmation and shoving them into something they don't want to do?
That's why this stuff is really challenging, even as we're trying to impart hope. That it's not. You make the pie, I make the pie, and because we all have the same ingredients to make the pie. Yeah. It's not that simple.
No.
And I think that there are helpful 1, 2, 3s, and we're going to talk about a few of them in a minute. But I would say that as helpful as this answer might be, or encouragement, let's make it an encouragement, is number one is you get your heart back. You become more.
Absolutely crucial.
You recover and have less false self to even be in any relationship, because this is a relationship. And that's where the false self and true self are supposed to thrive. And if your false self is more dominant because of wounds and agreements and vows, which you can look up other podcasts on how to recover the redeeming of the masculine heart, but that's you have to get your oxygen mask on first, so you can aid them in getting theirs. And so I that's the number one thing.
You got to have eyes and ears.
That's how you get eyes and ears to see,
Mm-hmm.
is being fathered by God, so that you can learn how to be a father and father the hearts of your kids. So that's my number one is there. And then the second thing, and this is we put this in King Me, they're asking questions and they're very, very cryptid. They don't ask them plainly, like it would be straightforward, But our hearts are asking questions. Their hearts are asking questions. The world's an option for answering. The enemy is definitely an option. Prince of Darkness and the minions of spiritual warfare. And then they're fragile. Their interpreter is somewhat fragile and susceptible to the negative. It's just bizarre. And you know how I know that? Not because of observing my kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
Observing mine.
Observing you. Yeah.
Came out of the factory somehow with that malfunction.
Yeah.
And so all of that adds up to a pretty good fight. And so the questions, though, that we know and have adopted and have written about and talked about, they're asking these questions. Do you see me? Do you love what you see? Do you want to be with me? If I was going to boil it down to one thing, it would be that. Answer those questions, yes, yes, and yes. And whatever paragraphs come after that, man, kind, pursuit. Yes, you don't know what's too far until you've bumped into too much nudging.
Yeah. Right.
And they feel pressure, And the other kid doesn't feel pressure, just grabs his mitt and he's mad at you for making him, and he's going to go out and play, and and then when he's on the mound in high school and has a no-hitter, he thanks mom. Thanks mom. Anyway, tongue in cheek. But I think that's the whole. There's so much going on in this, and how do all the little things add up for you guys as you have recovered and are in those stages now? How are the little things, a lot of them, contributing to the big thing, answering those questions? How are you doing that with Stephen now?
Yeah, man. We did a whole series on the ingredients of love several years ago. We probably need to revisit it. But validation, acceptance, belonging, worth, significance, right? So those are the ingredients that you can hand the bowl of soup to your kids to answer those questions. Do you see me? Do you love what you see? Right? And so the way that happens, I think mostly now for me, and it is challenging when they're younger and they're still under your roof, because there's just always stuff going on, like you indicated in the last episode. But it becomes even more of a challenge when they leave, because you're not seeing them every day, right? So you really have to create or seize opportunities. Create a moment, seize an moment. So Michael and I are going to Pennsylvania at the end of June, middle of June, actually. And we're going to Berwyn, Pennsylvania for a special event up there.
Father's Day event.
A Father's Day event, which is about, 25 minutes outside of Philadelphia, northwest of Philly. And so I said, man, Stephen lives in Philadelphia. I got to see him while I'm up there. I look at the baseball schedule, because when we're traveling in the springtime, it's always, hey, can we go a day
What's the
early?
closest park?
Is there a park nearby we can go catch a game while we're up there? Well, sure enough, Sunday afternoon, Father's Day, that's coming up for us as we're recording this. There's a game right there in Philadelphia. The Phillies are playing the Blue Jays. Oh, yeah. So I get to see Vladdy play, hopefully. Man. And
great park.
Yeah, man, great park.
Yeah.
So I just call him up and I say, hey, man, I'm going to be up for this one-day event on Saturday. Sunday's Father's Day. What if I hung out for a couple of days and you and I just caught a game and you could show me around some of your favorite spaces around Philly? So we're going to go watch a game Sunday night. We're going to go to one of his favorite live music venues and his coffee places, and take me to the best cheesesteak, that he's found in Philly and all that. And so seizing that moment, man, I could have just said, hey, come to the event.
Yeah.
And I'll hook up with you there, and we'll get a cup of coffee or something. Or
you
need to hear more of this.
Come to the
event. Yeah, come to my work. Exactly.
I'm working.
Exactly.
But that's really good.
But instead, the opportunity presented itself, and you just got to seize them sometimes, man. And just even if he had said to me, "Now, Dad, I'm going out of town that weekend," or I got other things going on, that would have been disappointing for me, for sure. But I know just the fact that even if it didn't work out, the offer
the partial credit
says a ton.
Yeah. I remember taking
it's
tests
good,
in
man.
high school. I gave you partial credit. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll sure take it.
You got your name on there, so I get your parcel.
I think that's a great example of, sometimes it's the opportunity. It's just a little left of center, and you can seize it. Other times, you might just need to make something up out of midair. Meaning, I'm trying to do this with my girls as adults. Is go on a trip with just them, so that I can be intentional. And I want to be intentional every day, but I can be even more intentional because now I'm in their presence of seeing them, letting them know that I love what I see and I want to be with them.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're not talking about recitals and ball games. We're talking about other parts of life and the stage that they're in and the work that they're doing, and how can I bring as much intel to those couple days and get as much intel from those couple days. And there's only one way, man, and that's asking questions and listening.
Yeah.
It's one of the most loving things we can do as a dad.
100%.
And it's one of the greatest ways that we can kind of woo them out of some of the shells that my youngest, she even identifies with turtles. I mean, she's an introvert, and I've
seen her with the hoodies.
Yeah, she just she'll say turtle. If it's too loud or it's too much or she's she was the one that it just had some hard things happen. And how do we move at that one, which is different than my other two? So each one of them, as you know, can be very different in their little personalities. And last thing I would say, I'm reading books that I wouldn't read, but I'm reading them because they're reading them.
Right.
And that's why I would read them now.
Yep.
Music that they listen to, that they'll share with me.
Yeah.
They'll send me.
Every Tuesday night, Stephen and I play games online.
How can you get in there and
Right.
answer those questions? And it's very hard to do without proximity.
Yeah.
And proximity doesn't have to be right next to you, but that is the best. How can you get next to them and get them next to you? And so, I've moved them in and out of apartments more than, I'm ready to hire dudes.
Yeah.
Let me,
I'll bring the pizza.
You asked me to help one time. And I was like, here's $50.
Yeah.
Let's go hire somebody.
And yet, it's not the way I want to answer the question, but it's a way I need to answer the question. I'm in, and hey, do you know a couple guys that we can hire that could help move the heavy stuff? But I'm there. I'm there with the trailer.
and I are getting old.
Yeah, man. So
that's why I don't answer when you call me after 4.
Right.
He wants me to move something.
Yeah, man.
I want to tell you, man, first off, awesome to invite Stephen into that. And when you said that, if I'm honest, you asked me a question to open up the last episode, which was, how's bedtime go? And if I'm really honest, most nights I'm spent. I'm exhausted. And I've got 3 rooms to go to.
Right.
So I've learned to mix up which room I go to first, because that normally gets the best. We talk, questions, laugh, tickles, and by the end I'm like, let me pray for you, go to bed. So one of the things my kids have learned from me is that I live and die by calendar. Like if it's not on the calendar, especially now, it's probably I forgot it or it's not going to happen. And so particularly with my youngest, he still invites me into his world quite often, the things that he likes to do. And when I have to say no because I either have other things or I'm just honestly tired, I've tried my best to circle back and say, hey, man, not I can't today or I can't right now. I'm going to go in and put you on the calendar. We're going to do that. When do you want tomorrow? Can we do this tomorrow? But, man, again, it was back to I'm in the ocean. We're just living life. And I look back and I realize, oh, crap, like I've told Ben no 6 times. No in like the invitation. No in the, hey, Dad, can we go do? Or Dad, can we do? Whatever it might be. And body language. And just watching him say, okay. And just kind of walk off. That was a moments that I missed. And then trying to seize them. It's a little bit different, man. I'm still with my kids at home. I'm in close proximity, and they are still inviting me into where they are. but I want to be so that when they're not in the home and I say, hey, I'm coming into town, you want to get together, it's a yes, of course, you know.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were going to say, because the older they get, I thought you were going to say, now you're the one on the beach and Ben's in the water.
Yeah,
true. And the currents of
the transition's coming.
The currents of life
happening.
are moving our
happening.
older kids, you know, down to a place that
I don't
happens.
understand how I have a 30-year-old.
Yeah.
The second thing that I think about when they're younger is it's all spontaneous when they're little.
Yeah.
It's in that moment. Can you do this now? Can you do that this afternoon? How about we do this tonight? Right. So they're not looking at a calendar. Well, some might be. I mean, my oldest probably was when she was. I think she had the day timer when she was probably 6th grade. She just that's part of her bent and glory, and
that's right.
That kid is organized, you know. Even to the point now that she'll say, I do not want to be the organizer. That should because we would take advantage of let's let Ashley organize it, you know. Yeah. And so, you know, it's still part of her glory, but not something she has to bring to the table to be a part of, you know. There's just things, and she's learned to express that, you know, that instead of just, why do I always have to do this? And
right. So can we circle back to Proverbs 22:6 as we land the plane on this episode?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Training up a child in the way they should go and the way of their specific bent,
and
right?
Gift,
and gifting. So learning your kid's heart and then recognize it, validation of who your child is, you know, does that ever stop? Not the validation part, but the learning about how God has specifically wired them.
In one word, no.
Okay.
Never stops.
Maybe I should ask a more open-ended question.
Well, we've talked about this with men.
Story
and,
of
and you know this. So you just said it. You just said it.
Uh-huh.
When did this happen? I have a 30-year-old.
He's 30.
You know, so you've never been here before.
Right.
Correct.
And that is a beautiful, if you can get a bifocal on the lenses of your heart to just be set at that for whatever you're experiencing, they will or are.
Yeah.
And that alone could be a helpful invitation into seeing a much larger view, more panoramic of there they are in this scene, but do you see the scene? And how did that affect you when you're in between jobs?
Oh man!
Or you change schools.
So funny you brought that up. I just not that long ago with Stephen. It's probably a few years ago now, but he somehow got the idea that, you know, when you become an adult, you have a job, you have it for 40 years, and then you retire and you move on to retirement or whatever, you know. And somehow he's a failure because he hasn't had the same job for his whole adult life, you know, all 8 years of it or whatever. You know, and so I got to say, buddy, let me rattle off the list of things I've done and the different careers I've had and different career paths, you know. And he was like, really? I thought you've been doing this one thing, you know.
So interesting. They don't know when you're little even you know, unless you're a pastor or something. They're actually going to your work.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Since he was about 10 or 11 years old, I've been involved in ministry pretty much full time.
Yeah.
But buddy, I did all these other things beforehand, and it's okay for you to try out different things. So anyway, to your point, you know, it's a continuous discovery with them.
And you know, again, without indicting, but you know, if you're a father and you have olders, do you even know what your kid does?
Yeah.
Like, really? Do you ask? And do you push in? You know, because how was work? You're going to get fine.
Yeah. Just like, how was school?
Yeah, just
fine.
But
did you do your homework? Yeah.
You know, but to ask another question like, well, tell me about your work. What I would love to hear. What is a kind of a normal
What
day?
do you love about it?
Yeah, and you'll find out I hate my job.
Nothing.
I didn't know that.
Sometimes you got to pay the bills. But.
Yeah, and they don't go into and then when they give you that, it's not fix-it mode. You know, like, well, let me get your resume and help you get it out there. So, tell me more about that.
Right.
You know, how far can you go
What
down?
happened?
Yeah. And they find out they don't hate their work. They don't like their boss.
Right.
Or they don't like being treated a certain way. I mean, there can be a lot of treasure there if you'll keep digging.
Yeah.
For, you know, even what their initial, if you're going to swing at the first pitch, and the third, you're probably going to go back to the dugout as be over. But if you can get that at bat to go longer and longer, you got a better chance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Talking about baseball now, but I'm saying, with our kids. So I think never ends. They've never been here before. You're still connected to them as a dad. Mm-hmm. That work that in your favor, and begin to move toward them in the stage of life they're in. And I would say this: this is so important, man. Even if your kids are 30 and 40, and if your kids are in their teens, there's still a little boy in there.
That's right.
And there's still a little girl in there.
That's right.
And so you may not get on the bed and tuck them in that way, but you may get to sit on the bed and physical touch and look them in the eye. Try to get that proximity whenever you can.
Still asking, man. Do you
still,
see me?
Mm-hmm. So
Because we are.
If that's the setup, if that's the setup, man, use it to your advantage, rather than letting the enemy use it.
That's right.
I'll close with the Frederick Douglass quote that says, "It's easier to raise strong boys and girls than to heal broken men and women."
Yeah.
And yet, that's some of the job now for some of us is to be an advocate for their healing regarding wounds caused by us.
Yes.
And there's some landmines even around that. There's some security, what are those red
like the Mission Impossible.
Yeah, there's lasers around some of that stuff because the enemy does not want that stuff addressed.
Yes.
And so you're going to have to, get on your game to sort that out. But I think that's the
get on your game and get on the gurney.
your own heart.
Yeah, you can't offer what you don't have.
Yeah. And this, the last hope piece would be, man, you're not in this alone. God. But if you will put on your hard hat, put on your gloves sometimes, and move with God, I think He'll give you some of the treasure. Just dig.
Mm-hmm.
He'll move the treasure. He'll move the treasure to where you're digging. Yeah. I think because you're digging.
Yeah.
And wanting to. You don't have to do
right.
this perfectly, but you do need to move at this intentionally, and keep practicing.
It's good.
It takes time. So
it's good.
I think we have one more session on this.
Maybe two. We'll see.
Wrap up. So, man, thanks for being with us, man.
you guys.
Sharing a little bit of the young dad.
Well, and seriously, the beautiful part of RGM, Redeeming Generational Masculinity, is I am a better husband and dad because of you guys. Seriously.
Thanks, man.
And men like you that are involved in this message, man. So
that's awesome. That's very honoring to hear,
critically important, man.
Yeah. So,
thanks,
hey,
buddy.
with that, hope that you're encouraged, and that if you need a circle of men to become a part of, email us, let us know.
Comment.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we will we'll make room.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some national Zoom calls going on that we can always add a box to that and introduce you to some guys that might be in your area or in your time zone, if not really in your area. So you're not meant or built to do this alone, and I'm glad we don't have to. So, hey, we'll see you next time on the Exploring More podcast.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoe.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the life of more by visiting Zoe on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoe on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.